Hello! In our last project, we looked at the fastest cars you can own in Cyberpunk. Today, we're going to be looking at the slowest. And to introduce the whole project, we're going to be looking at the HellaEC-D I360. This is V's starting car at the beginning of the game. And there are 12 cars that you can get that are actually slower, and there are 5 that are comparable in speed and pace. Regardless of which life path you choose, you will see an opening montage where you and Jackie will be completing various gigs to get enough money to buy a car. And that is this car. You start with a humble front-wheel drive 4-door sedan that's been modified with a questionable exhaust note. V's starting car for Laptime comes in at position number 70, and there are 82 cars total. That means 12 cars are slower than your starting car, and we're gonna look at all of them. All vehicles will be tested around my northern testing track. This is an area where traffic doesn't spawn, and it is ideal for testing. Supron Trailbruiser. This is the slowest car in the game that you can own around my testing track. Lore-wise, it is a van that is mounted to a truck's chassis. It has a nice turn-in and is neutral to drive. However, the defining characteristic of this car is that it is slow. It is noisy, it is loud, not the best car for cruising around Night City. The suspension on it is pretty decent, so maybe you'd use it for off-roading. Tanishi T400. This is a cute little pickup truck that can say konnichiwa, sayonara to you when you get in and out of it. You get this car for free when you enter the Dogtown area. Mr. Hands will send you a message, something along the lines of, the roads in Europe are small, same with Dogtown, it's dangerous to go alone, so take this. Despite this car being slow, it is actually not the easiest to drive. When you're entering a braking zone, it likes to downshift a lot, and when you get back on the power, it'll kick the rear end out. Galena G240. This is a low-power front-wheel drive car that is slow, but not bad to drive. This might be a decent car for cruising around Night City, however, not the most stylish with the rusted panels and the damage to the body. However, the hood and the driver's side door are new, so it's got that going on for it. Supron FS3. This is the normal van version of the Trailbruiser. This small front-wheel drive van does suffer from a medium amount of understeer, making it unpleasant to drive. This vehicle's compact nature and style might be appealing, but its driving dynamics are not. Columbus V4F Freight. If you are looking for the slowest but still pleasant way to cruise around Night City, this van might be it. This is a low horsepower rear-wheel drive van that is pleasant to drive, despite the fact that it's pretty slow. Dynamically, there's nothing about it that's offensive or annoying. It's pretty neutral. Colby CX410 Gran Butte. This is the same as the Colby CX410 Butte, but this is the free version. To get the car, you must travel to the Badlands and go to the Desert Film Set. Here, the car will be sitting unattended. The remains of the film crew and some wraiths will be there, and if you hop in the car, it'll become yours. This car has some weird steering. It feels like if you do a small input, there will be a big result, making driving the car pretty difficult. Additionally, the steering feels like it is slow to change directions. The steering characteristics of this car are slow and inconsistent. Colby CX410 Butte. Same as the car we just looked at, except this one is in green. And you have to buy this one. But the problems with it are exactly the same. A small input will give you a large result, and the car is slow to change directions, making the steering again feel slow and unresponsive. Colby Colby Barghest. Yes, this car has the same steering problems as the previous 2 cars that we just looked at. However, it's less of an issue in this car because this car is a lot heavier and has more power. So because of that, the issues with the steering are slightly reduced. However, they are still present. And there's a new problem. Since this is a Barghest car, it is noisy. Mackinaw Demiurge. Monster truck. Monster truck. This monster truck is a quest reward after a very ridiculous long quest line that is possible to cheese. Basically, the cheese way is like you go talk to a laptop and then you wait a little bit and then you go find a mattress in the desert and hang out with that mattress till you pass out. And then when you wake up, the car will be there and it's yours. If you're interested in getting this car, I highly recommend hopping on YouTube and checking out a couple videos on how to do it the easy way. And if you're ever curious how to do it the legit full way, I would say definitely check out a YouTube video about it. It's a lengthy process, so I'm not gonna cover how to do it. Anyways, let's talk about the car. This is one of the most unique driving experiences in the game, and it's mainly because of the suspension. The suspension has a lot of articulation during braking and cornering, making this thing a challenge to drive, but also very fun. Additional to that, off-road, this car is incredible. For a long time in this game, I have wondered what a vehicle with truly big suspension would be able to do off-road, and this answers that question, and it's very impressive. This is like a Nomad car cranked up to 11. It can very easily glide over rough terrain, and watching the suspension work while off-roading is very satisfying. Another thing about this car you might notice is it's pretty loud. What? I said it's loud. What? It's loud. I can't hear you. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Tanishi Kuma. This is very similar to the Tanishi T400 we looked at earlier, except this is a more off-roady, higher performance version. So this try-hardy, cute little guy can also say konnichiwa and sayonara to you when you get in and out of it. It has a bit more power, but it still has the same issues. When you're entering a braking zone, it has awkward downshifting, and when you get on the power, it wants to kick the rear end out. It has snappy oversteer on corner exit, and that makes the car feel jittery and unstable. So slightly faster, but still difficult to drive. Colby C125. All these Colbys, man! How many Colbys are there? I am pleased to report that this Colby does not have the same steering issue as the previous Colbys we looked at. Instead, it has a completely different problem, and that problem is understeer. This is a low-power front-wheel drive car that deals with heavy understeer. During my testing, it was very challenging to optimize the lap time in this car because one of two things happened. I slowed down too much for the corner, or I drove straight into the wall. Because of the understeer, this is not a pleasant car to drive. Maimai P126. This is the Cyberpunk smart car, and it's actually not that bad to drive. This is a decent little guy. Believe it or not, this guy is rear-wheel drive and handles really nicely. The main criticism I would say is that it does feel like it's down on power, but beyond that, the chassis, the turn-in, the handling all feel good. This is a nice, neutral feeling, pleasant car to drive. I ended up liking this car. If you want a decent, small, compact car to cruise around the city in, this is a good pick. And that brings us to V's starting car, the HellaEC-D I360. So, were any of the previous cars worth getting? Maybe the Maimai 126, definitely the Mackinaw Demiurge, and maybe the Columbus V4F Freight? Maybe? Other than that, I think we're good. However, of course, I think you should grab all of the cars so that you can have a nice, complete collection. But as far as cars that are worth it, that are slower than your starting car, I would say those three. Alright, so let's now look into what driving V's starting car is like. Well, for a front-wheel drive car, it's very easy to drive. It has minimal understeer, nice handling, and that results in a pleasant driving experience. The biggest issue with the HellaEC-D I360 is its top speed. It has a relatively low top speed that's easy to hit, and that causes the vehicle to be a lot slower than you would expect around my testing track. But in terms of handling, that's where it shines. It is a slow, front-wheel drive, well-handling car. As a starting car, it's pretty good. Assuming you can handle the exhaust note, By the way, this car seems to top out at about 100 miles per hour. It does get up to 101, but overall, CD Projekt Red chose wisely. They chose an excellent car for V to start with. Alright, so now we're going to move on to cars that are actually faster than our starting car, but not by much, being on a similar pace of speed. Starting with the Emperor 620 Ragnar. This is Cyberpunk's version of the Tahoe or Suburban. I would probably say more so the Tahoe. You see it often used by police, Arasaka, Militech. This is basically like the combat/law enforcement SUV. If you want to get some of that like military, civilian kind of vibe going while you're cruising around Night City, you might want to pick this up and go for a drive. And it's a nice car to drive too. It's neutral in its handling characteristics. It is a reasonable powered but heavy all-wheel drive car that, yes, it does feel a little bit slow, but it is pleasant and smooth to drive. Alvarado V4F 570 Delegate. This is the lightest weight of the three Alvarados, but in my testing it came in the slowest. That being said, the difference in performance between the three cars is very, very small, and I think the difference in weight between the three cars is mainly just there for flavor, to show that the convertible should be the heaviest, the hatchback not so heavy, and the coupe should be the lightest weight. But in terms of performance, maybe the difference in weight is so small that it doesn't affect the lap times, or maybe the weight is only there for flavor. I will say in my testing that I noticed that every time a vehicle had different horsepower, it had a different level of performance. Sometimes with weight, there was a very noticeable difference in performance. Sometimes there wasn't. This is one of those cases where the difference of performance between these three cars is really small, almost not noticeable. So that makes me think that the weight is mainly there just as a flavor text rather than a performance indicator. Alvarado V4F 570 Herman. So all three of the Alvarados basically feel the same in how they drive. They feel stable, they feel smooth, but they do feel slow. I think stylistically is what's going to direct you towards which one you appreciate the most. Because in terms of driving, all three of them basically feel the same. Sneaking in between the Alvarados with an identical time to the Herman is the Thrax 388 Jefferson. Funny enough, this car handles and feels pretty much the same as the Alvarados. This is a car that feels slow, smooth, big, overall decent to drive. I do like the imposing nature of this car, and I like that it doesn't have the four wheels in the front. It has the traditional, two wheels in the front, two wheels in the back. I really like the styling of this vehicle, and this is a nice vehicle for cruising around Night City looking good. Last vehicle that we're going over in this video is the Alvarado V4F 580 Vato. You'd think with the 580 versus the 570 that it would be a boost in performance, maybe more horsepower, but no. This car is the same in terms of horsepower as the other two Alvarados, with a horsepower figure of 407. This used to be a very special car in the game because it was the only convertible. Open top? It's the only car that doesn't have a roof, right? But since then, we've had the Porsche 930 Cabriolet added and the Xi'an MZT Targa added. So this car has lost a little bit about what made it special, but it is still a cool, big car for cruising around in Night City. Pretty much the same handling characteristics like the other three cars we looked at, where overwhelmingly it feels slow, but it feels smooth, it's decent to drive, and it's just nice for cruising. This was the OG original open-top convertible that you could get in the game. And that's going to wrap up this project. Thank you very much for watching. That's all that I got for now. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.